It was a quiet Tuesday morning in a small town diner, the kind of place where the smell of coffee lingered in the air, the sound of sizzling bacon and eggs came from the kitchen, and locals gathered at the same tables they always did. The kind of place where the waitresses knew your order by heart, and the old jukebox in the corner hadn't played a tune in years, but still stood there like a relic of better times. An elderly woman, her hair streaked with silver and her skin marked by time, slowly walked in through the door. Her name was Evelyn. She was a 72-year-old grandmother, known by some of the locals as a kind soul who always had a gentle word and a warm smile for anyone she met. But she also carried herself with quiet dignity, the kind that made you want to stand up straighter when she walked into the room. Evelyn had been through much in life, but she never allowed hardship to break her spirit. That morning, she had simply come in for her favorite, grits, scrambled eggs, and a side of toast with strawberry jam. She carried her purse tightly against her side, walked to a booth near the window, and sat down slowly, easing her tired body onto the red vinyl seat. The waitress greeted her warmly, took her order, and Evelyn gave her a smile that lit up her wrinkled face. But at the counter, sitting just a few feet away, was a man who noticed Evelyn for the wrong reasons. His name was Carl, a man in his late 30s, tall and broad-shouldered, with a mean streak that had earned him a reputation around town. He wasn't just known as a bully, he was proud of it. He lived to intimidate, to sneer, to show off his power in front of others. To him, people like Evelyn, quiet, elderly, black, were easy targets. He had grown up arrogant, entitled, and with no sense of respect for those around him. Carl watched Evelyn as she adjusted her purse and smoothed her dress. Something inside him, a twisted need for attention and dominance, drove him to get up from his stool and walk toward her booth. He smirked as though the diner was his stage, and the people inside were his audience. "Hey, lady," he said loudly enough for others to hear. Evelyn looked up at him, startled but polite. "Yes, young man," she asked softly. Carl leaned on her table, smirking. "You think you can just sit here, taking up a whole booth, when people like me are standing? You old folks think the world owes you something." Evelyn blinked, confused. "I'm just waiting for my breakfast. I didn't mean to bother anyone." But Carl wasn't looking for reason. He wanted to humiliate. He sneered and said, "You people are always in the way. Always sitting where you don't belong." A silence fell over the diner. A couple at the far end stopped eating. The waitress froze mid-step, unsure whether to step in or not. Everyone knew Carl, and everyone knew his temper. But no one expected what came next. In a flash of anger, Carl raised his hand and slapped Evelyn hard across the face. The sound echoed in the quiet diner. Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her cheek as her eyes welled with tears. She hadn't been struck in decades, not since her husband passed and she faced the world alone. The cruelty of it, the sheer disrespect, left her trembling in shock. A few customers gasped. One woman cried out, "My God." Another man muttered under his breath, but none dared step forward. Carl stood there, towering over her, smirking as though he had just proven something. But what Carl didn't know, what no one in that diner knew, was that Evelyn's son was not just any man. He was Marcus Reynolds, the head of Homeland Security. A man whose life's mission was protecting the nation, fighting threats both foreign and domestic, and who had the power to bring justice in ways Carl couldn't begin to imagine. And in that moment, fate had aligned itself perfectly, because Marcus had chosen that morning to surprise his mother by joining her for breakfast. He had just walked through the door, unseen by Carl, as the slap landed on his mother's cheek. Marcus froze. His blood boiled instantly. In all his years of training, in all his work protecting his country, nothing compared to the rage that filled him at the sight of his mother being struck by a stranger. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened, and he moved forward with the quiet, controlled power of a man who had spent his entire life standing up to bullies of far greater scale. Carl didn't notice him at first. He was too busy grinning, turning back toward the counter as if expecting applause. But the silence in the diner was different now, he could feel it. Then he heard the steady footsteps approaching behind him. He turned around casually, only to find himself face to face with Marcus, whose eyes burned with fury. "Apologize," Marcus said in a low, commanding voice that cut through the air like a blade. Carl laughed mockingly. "And who are you supposed to be? Her bodyguard?" The corners of Marcus's mouth tightened. "Her son." Carl smirked, clearly unimpressed. "So what, you gonna cry about it too?" But before he could blink, Marcus grabbed Carl's wrist with lightning speed, twisting it back until Carl groaned in pain. The bully's arrogance melted instantly as he realized this was no ordinary man. Marcus leaned in close, his voice sharp. "You put your hands on the wrong woman. And you just made the biggest mistake of your life." The diner went silent again. Customers stared in awe, their hearts racing. Some even pulled out their phones to record, sensing they were witnessing something unforgettable. Carl tried to pull away, but Marcus tightened his grip. "You think you can hit an elderly woman? You think that makes you a man? Let me tell you something, you don't lay a hand on my mother, or any woman, ever again." Carl's bravado crumbled. He stammered, all right, I'm sorry." But Marcus wasn't done. He pushed Carl back against the counter, pinning him with a force that made everyone realize he wasn't just strong, he was trained, disciplined, dangerous in a way Carl had never faced. The waitress, still trembling, whispered to another customer, "That's Marcus Reynolds, the head of Homeland Security." The word spread like wildfire. Whispers filled the diner. Suddenly, Carl's eyes widened as he realized the truth. The man holding him wasn't just a protective son, he was one of the most powerful men in the country. Marcus finally released him, letting him stumble backward. Carl clutched his wrist, humiliated, his face red with both pain and shame. Marcus turned to his mother, his eyes softening instantly as he gently touched her cheek where the slap had landed. "Are you all right, Mama?" he asked tenderly. Evelyn nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm fine, son. I'm just shaken." Marcus kissed her forehead and helped her to her feet, guiding her back into the booth. Then he turned back to Carl, his expression dark again. "You're going to leave this diner," Marcus said firmly. "And you're going to remember this moment for the rest of your life. Because next time you think about raising your hand to someone, you'll remember who stopped you." Carl, now visibly shaken, nodded quickly. "Why yeah, all right." He turned and stumbled toward the door, his once proud shoulders slumped in defeat. The entire diner erupted in applause. Strangers who had been frozen in fear now clapped, cheered, and even stood on their feet. Some shouted, "That's right," and, "Teach him a lesson." Others simply watched with tears in their eyes, moved by the strength of both Evelyn and her son. As the noise filled the diner, Marcus simply sat back down beside his mother, his arm around her shoulders, whispering softly to her. "You never have to face anyone like that alone again. Not while I'm here." The story didn't end there. Within hours, videos of the incident had spread across social media. News outlets picked it up, headlines blaring, "Bully slaps elderly woman in diner. Her son, head of Homeland Security, teaches him a lesson." People across the nation watched in outrage at Carl's cruelty and in admiration at Marcus's powerful response. Evelyn became a symbol of dignity and resilience, while Marcus became a reminder that true power is not in intimidation, but in protection and justice. Carl, on the other hand, became infamous. His name was dragged through the mud, his reputation shattered. No one admired him anymore. He wasn't feared, he was pitied. And in the quiet moments, when he thought back to that day, he could still feel the unshakable grip of Marcus Reynolds on his wrist and the piercing gaze of a man who represented everything he was not. Evelyn's life returned to normal, but she often received messages of love and support from strangers who had seen the video. People called her brave, strong, inspiring. She would always smile and say, "I'm just a mother who raised a good son." And maybe that was the real lesson. Because while bullies like Carl believe power comes from fear, the truth is far greater. Real power is the courage to stand for what is right, the strength to protect the vulnerable, and the love that binds a family together. So the next time you see someone being mistreated, remember this story. Remember Evelyn, remember Marcus, and remember that sometimes, justice walks in through the door exactly when it's needed most. Because no matter how dark the world may seem, light has a way of shining through, especially when a bully thinks he's strong, but finds out he just messed with the wrong mother's son.